Welcome back, everybody. Mr. Young here with Webster Groves High School Computer Science and IT. This is part 2 in our web design series discussing how to set up GitHub with a web design or website project. The first video discussed what files, what software do you need, Git, and then an account with GitHub, and then walk you through how to create a folder, how to create a repository on GitHub, and then in brackets, our actual desktop application, our IDE, how do we begin to set up our first file and connect it to our local repository on our computer's desktop or somewhere on the physical hard drive of your desktop. So this video is going to take a step forward and talk about how do we set up Git itself along with its commands and its ability to connect to our GitHub repository at github.com. If you've never used brackets is very similar to Dreamweaver from years past. Again, Dreamweaver was a product. To my knowledge, it's still available in the Adobe suite, but I've heard rumors that maybe Brackets is going to replace it, considering Brackets is now owned by Adobe. The one thing that Brackets does not have is the graphical user interface ability to drag and drop pictures easily and to be able to design visually a WYSIWYG environment. It is really more of a coding environment, such as using Eclipse to do Java programming or Visual Studio to do C# or VB.NET. So this is the environment we're working in. I have a file that I set up just before the end of the last video called index.html. We'll do just a small amount of coding here. This video is not about the coding, but setting up GitHub. But we'll do a little bit just so you can see how it works. So over here on the right, you'll notice that I have a few buttons here. You probably do not have those buttons unless you have already set up Git extension. So you'll notice right here, this one actually will bring up a box along the bottom that gives us the ability to use Git commands and as well as initialize or clone repositories from GitHub. So you're going to need to add some extra software here. If you click on this button right here, looks like a little Lego block, it's going to allow you to add extensions. Extensions with brackets are very similar to installing a Chrome extension. It just extends the capabilities of this application as is. So we're going to put in there Git brackets, maybe brackets Git. I always get this backwards, but let's see if it comes up. Nothing comes up, so let me type in brackets Git. And it may be because I've already installed it, but it's going to look something like this one here, only it should say brackets Git. And that's the one you want to choose to install. Let me see, I might already have it here. If I go under installed, you'll probably see it. Yeah, that's what it looks like right there. Brackets Git by Martin Zagora. Integration of Git into brackets. You're going to want to install that. If you need to, pause the video, get that installation. It may require brackets to restart. I can't exactly remember, but nonetheless, just install it and then get back to this point. Once you have installed Git successfully, you should see this little button right here. That is the logo for Git. So if you look at their website back when you installed the Git software, that logo was front and center on their webpage. So that's how we'll know that that is the Git logo. Okay, so like I said, in the last video, we created a folder on our desktop called website test 2. That's what I called it. What we're going to do now is start to connect those two folders locally, not two folders, I'm sorry, connect brackets locally to that folder, and then we will actually connect locally to our remote repository, and remote meaning it's on GitHub servers. Okay, remote meaning not anywhere near the local computer. So in order to get that started, we're going to click on init down here, and you're going to see some buttons pop up. Okay, so a couple of things. One, you're going to start to learn a whole lot of new commands that I'll talk about here in this video and in the upcoming videos. But commit. What are some basics with Git? So I'm going to go over here to a web page and give some credit to Yuri Strumpflohner. Apologize if I mispronounced your word there. But what he did is he actually has a little diagram that explains how Git works. So you have what's known as a working directory. That is actually the directory that is local on your computer. You can create a local working directory on your computer at work. and then push it all onto GitHub servers. And then when you go home, you can put it onto your local computer and then put it back. So the key is always when you're finished on whatever client or desktop you're working on, that you put it back onto Git directories or GitHub servers. There are a number of ways of doing that. You don't have to, put a file up there and overwrite, a perfect file. You can put it in something known as branches and then work on it later. But the key is you work on it on your local computer, and then when you're satisfied with your work, you would put it over onto GitHub's servers. So what are the terms that we need to be familiar with? Just here as beginners, and then we'll get into it more. You're going to learn about branches. Branches, just like branches on a tree, there is the main trunk or the main branch, and that's referred to as the master. The master branch, from my understanding, as I'm relatively new to Git, is where the final product is really going to go. It's not a branch you want to work off of. It's not a place where you want to put all your files permanently. It's where the end product is. So for everything else you're doing while you're putting the site together, you want to put it onto different branches. More about that later. We have clone. Clone means to take whatever is on GitHub servers and then put it onto your local computer so that you can begin doing local work. So cloning does not mean that you're making a new project. It just means go to GitHub servers, give me all the data that I've pushed up there in the past, and let me work on it from home now. You see the term commit, and that matches that button right there. Commit, it says, allows you to submit files to a repository. Now, you see in parentheses the local one. When you press commit, that is making sure that it is saved and updated in your local folder on your computer. It is not putting it onto GitHub's. And that's a mistake I've made in the past, and I'm sure some of us here that are completely new to this may make it and kind of learn the hard way. But committing does not mean that you're putting it on GitHub servers. It means that you are committing to saving it locally. You have another term here referred to as fetch or pull. It is like updating or getting the latest in your repository. So you can actually fetch or pull down a file from GitHub. So say you're on a team and one of your teammates just made a major update and pushed it into the repository on GitHub, and you don't have that one locally at home or locally on your desktop to work with. We can fetch or pull that file down. So just think about it almost like a door handle. If you're pulling it, you're bringing it closer to you. If you are pushing it, you are pushing it away or moving it away from you. So the next word there or term is push. And push means to take the local file on your computer and put it onto a branch within your repository on GitHub servers. Okay, so pushing is when you're actually seriously committing, hate to use the word commit here, but you're seriously committing to putting it onto one of your branches onto the GitHub server. Ideal to do that when you are wanting to make sure that work from home is available at work, and you're satisfied with the changes. The term remote is referring to files that are locally on your computer. So that folder right there on my desktop, that is my remote repository. I'm sorry, that is my local repository. The GitHub repository that I have up here, website 2, you see it's on GitHub's webpage. That is actually my remote repository. It's not even close to me. It's remotely out there. It's on a server somewhere in the world wherever GitHub saves their data. And again, we'll get more into the terms head and branch later, but branches just gives us the ability to work in isolation from maybe our peers while we're experimenting with the web page and we're not sure that we're ready for it to go live. We can actually work within our own little world and see how it works before we're ready to push it into the master branch as something we are ready to commit and share with the world. Okay, so those are just the basic terms. And again, this diagram is just showing that you're working, and when you're ready to push your work onto GitHub servers, it's referred to as staging files. And then when you are truly ready to make a save, you would commit it locally here, and then finally you would push it onto a Git repository. Okay, so back over here again, we have one file here. It says untracked, which basically means we have a file on our computer that is not being followed by GitHub or is not going to be put on GitHub servers. So I'm going to say, hey, I want that initial file that's ready to go. Notice it says staged. We've seen that word before, right? Staged means it's sitting in the staging area and it is ready to be committed locally here for saving, and it is ready, if you choose, to push it onto a branch on the GitHub servers. So we're going to do both. We're going to say commit. I'm ready to commit this file, and again, you can commit a whole bunch of files or a whole project at once, but I only have one file to commit. And then you need to add a commit message. The commit message is completely up to you. It's like a comment, but I would say for the purposes of making the notes useful on GitHub's webpage when you get into collaboration, it's important to actually say why you chose to commit or save this file. So I'm going to say this is my initial commit, meaning this is the first time this file was ever saved. Not much else I can say here. I don't have any code yet. Nothing significant has happened. It's not like I updated to fix a button or a menu now works that didn't work. You know, I don't have a specific comment really there. So the initial commit is what I use when I put my file up there for the first time. I'll press OK. And what we need to do is we need to say, wait a second, we need to create our new remote. How do we connect our local work on our computer to GitHub so that it actually pushes or allows us to put it onto their servers when we're ready? Well, we have to say create new remote, and it's going to say enter the name of the new remote. It wants to know essentially where is that new remote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my GitHub webpage where my whole project is being set up, and I'm going to say clone or download. So I'm going to go right here, and you don't have to highlight this. There's a copy button. And what this is going to do is give brackets the location of where all of this stuff is supposed to be saved. So they make this really easy. I'll paste it in here. I always have to Control V or Command V on the Mac. Press OK. I'm going to do it again. I think the first box, let me back that up for a second. I think what they really wanted you to do is give it a name first. So I'll just call it Website Test 2. What's the name of the new remote? There we go. Then I can paste in the link and press OK. And you'll notice that these buttons now become available, which means that it is able to put files up onto GitHub servers. So if I were to do a push here, it's going to say, what the heck is your username or password? Take a second and type in yours. And I would also recommend choosing Save Credentials to Remote URL so that you don't have to keep doing this. If you're in an environment that's not very secure or you leave your desk frequently, maybe you don't want to do that, so that way you have to be there to type in the password. I'm going to pause here and get this in there. You should have gotten a message that looks something like this here, saying that our push to GitHub was successful. It pushed it to my branch. It also locally has updated the master branch. Since we don't know anything about branches, we only have one right now, and everything is ready to go. If for some reason you did not have success, which happens, it's no big deal, you may want to go over here to Terminal and actually use a command that I've used a number of times here. Let me actually open up a new one here. And sometimes it will say that you maybe have code that is different locally than what's on the server, and it fails to initially push. So one of the commands that I use to get that going, and I'm only ever had to use it once, is this one right here. Git pull, which basically is going to take the current files that are up onto your GitHub server, which in our case is only one file. You have to go in here and say, what is the name of the project? So mine says Website 2 right here. So this is where you type the name of your project as you see it on GitHub. Master, because there's only one branch, and then say allow unrelated histories. If you run this command, then you should be able to recommit, and then over here choose to commit. Choose to push, and you should have success just like the message that I just showed you a second ago. So I'll leave this up here at the end of part 2 if you need to pause and look at it. But if you had any kind of failure, it's probably because you're pushing local files that didn't fully exist on the server, or there's a miscommunication, and this will allow any unrelated histories between the two to be resolved and future pushes to work.